Hello, Packers fans. Welcome to today's edition of the Green 19 podcast. I'm Dominique Yates. Joining me are my colleagues Ryan Wood and Tom Silverstein. Guys, here inside Lambeau Field, we've been covering practice for the past couple of days with the Packers, getting ready for Sunday's game in Nashville against the Tennessee Titans. No reason to bury the lead. Jordan Love has been out there practicing. But before we just dive into even more so what that means for this team, because it obviously is a big kind of development right now, it's not just a, hey, I'm ready to play, let's go. There is a process that he has to go through. So for you, Ryan, can you kind of break that down for people just to have an idea of if he does play, what's the steps he has to go through?
Yeah, it's a cliche to say that an injury is day to day, but in this case, I think it really fits. Like, this is truly a day to day check and monitor. How's he doing? How's it feeling? What's the progress? What's the step back? Each day. So just to get him back on the practice field, like, he had to be cleared medically to practice. The knee was good enough to put him out there to practice Wednesday. I think it's very promising. It's very significant that he was out there Thursday in pads. For one, that's a big the big practice of the week, and two, his knee responded well from Wednesday. Those are two very promising developments. I think what Friday ultimately shows you, are they just testing it out this week and then they shut him down Friday? We see him do that all the time with injured players. Okay, let's get you back on the field, shut you down Friday, and then maybe return you the following week. If he practices Friday, I kind of look at it as something, maybe a little bit more than a 50% chance that he plays at this point, not much more. If he practices Friday, I would think that he's going to play. All 3 days, you're on the field Friday. That's a green light to me. So we haven't quite seen that green light yet, but it's been a very promising week, and at the very least, worst case scenario, no setbacks, I think it's a lock that he's going to be week 4 starting against the Minnesota Vikings at home. So it's been a very, when you think about it back in Brazil where that, worst case scenario, the worst thoughts might have been, it's been a very promising thing for this team.
Yeah, and I do want to talk about some of that locker room stuff in a minute. But for you, Tom, just to see the progression, I guess what were your thoughts and reactions to seeing that he's at least taken the steps and those positive steps to getting back on the field at this stage?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought that would be the case this week, that they would try to, work him out and get him some practice reps. But I truly think going into Wednesday, it was TBD, okay, let's see how he does. Then, they couldn't give him all the snaps. And even if he took any snaps in the 11-on-11s, they can't throw him out there and give him, 50 snaps. Same thing on Thursday. He's in pads. He's practicing. He looks like he's moving okay. Had a small little brace on the outside of his left knee, which I would think he would play with. But it's certainly not like the big braces you used to see these linemen wear when they had torn MCLs. I think it comes down to, how much stamina does his leg have? How well can he protect himself? And, how much soreness does he have on Saturday? I think they'll gradually ramp him up and then make a decision on Friday whether he's going to play. They'll say, oh, we'll decide on game day or we'll decide on Saturday. That's bull. They'll decide Friday, I think, after practice.
I'm curious what both of your impressions were, but I'm not surprised that he's on the field this week, because after the game Sunday, it sure sounded like, all last week I'm adamant, like, there's no way he's playing. There's no chance. None. Nil. Like, there's just no chance. And it was something more than zero. It might not have been much more than zero, but it was late in the week from what other players in the locker room who are privy to game information, game planning. It was late in the week that they actually realized, okay, this is not happening. But it was very active. He was very active last week, not practicing, but very active. And it was something more than 0% chance that he could play. It was realistic. So I'm not surprised that he's practicing this week. I wouldn't be surprised either way come Sunday. I wouldn't be surprised if he does play at all. But I wouldn't be surprised if they give it one more week either. And I think what Malik Willis gave this team does give a flexibility. I asked Matt LaFleur point blank, does winning against the Colts, having a backup guy that you have some confidence in, does it affect the – and he said no. I don't see how the difference between having a QB2 that, okay, can give you something and a guy can't give you anything. If it's close, I don't know. I'm not saying it's a game changer, but I think it has some influence. So I think it's really going to be an interesting decision. I wouldn't be surprised either way.
Something that I'm curious to see if he does play, you mentioned that brace. how mobile will he be? Because he said it's not as comfortable. He's not going to be, you could say, quote unquote, Jordan Love per se in terms of how he could move the football. So I'm wondering, especially when we talked in the locker room, he did say it feels a little bit weird, like it's not normal in that regard.
I asked him point blank if it affected his mobility at all, or if it's something that you can just kind of be the same guy. He's like, no, it definitely does. Yeah. It definitely feels slower running with this thing and trying to be mobile. And then my next question was, is that important? Like, because base level, he has to be able to protect himself to play. Yeah. Anything more than that, then how close to you do you have to be able to actually play? And he said he seemed to think that it was actually really important that he could be mobile. It's a huge part of his game. He once he's out there, he's going to be reacting. He's not going to be thinking about the knee. He's just going to be reacting, making plays. So he needs to be able to have the mobility, to have the reaction time, to feel like himself in order to play. So that is a significant hurdle that he's trying to figure out.
To go to that point of maybe if clearly he's not going to be 100%, but let's say in a scenario maybe he's 70% or 80% or that regard. If you are the Packers, do you feel like, okay, after you saw what Malik Willis could do, would you maybe give him another week and try to get Love closer to healthy for that Vikings game, or do you go out there with Jordan Love? I guess, how do you think about it, Spoon?
I think if I felt he could protect himself and that he, they were pretty sure he wasn't going to re-injure it or just by taking a sack that's going to put him in danger, I would play him. I do think that they would come up with a very safe game plan, though. I think they would play off of what they just did to the Colts because the Titans are going to have to defend the run first after seeing what they did to the Colts. I think you'd see a lot of play action. I think you'd see a lot of short stuff. Tennessee's going to have 8 guys in the box. You can bank on that, take that to the bank. And so I think you would see a lot of slants, short passes, stuff out into the flat, and just get him going in the early going and, try to run the ball with him too. But have him there to take the shots, and if you're pass blocking pretty well, then you start to open up the offense a little bit.
I'm curious, and I want to get both of your all's thoughts on this as far as with the offense. You're playing a Titans team. Defensively, you could argue maybe even better than the Colts. They have some really solid defensive linemen. We talked about Jeffrey Simmons. We talked about those guys. And
veteran.
Yeah, veteran guys.
They're not a bunch of young guys. They got veteran guys all up and down the lineup.
Yeah. So because of that, how much more of a challenge does this Packers offense have? Now, not only because of the talent that the Titans have on defense, but now they have film on maybe some of that running attack that the Packers might try to do.
I don't know how much having film in the element of surprise matters because it's not like they were taking the Colts by surprise last week. They just had a really creative game plan, and they executed it very well, and they stayed patient in keeping with the game plan, which was to run the ball. And then they had success, and they won their matchups, and they executed them. And that's what – it's not like the Colts were surprised. They knew all week Malik Willis was going to play and that they were going to run the ball a ton down their throat.
Yeah.
They just couldn't do anything about it because of good game plan, good execution. So if the Packers bring whoever's the quarterback, and one of maybe the most interesting thing I heard after the game Sunday was Elton Jenkins tell me whoever the quarterback was, the game plan wasn't going to change that much. I mean, even if it was Jordan Love and that knee, we knew we had to run the ball a ton to protect his knee. Like this was going to be the game plan regardless Jordan Love, Malik Willis. I imagine it's going to be pretty similar this week in terms of one game plan, 2 quarterbacks. Some tweaks, and I'm with you, Spoon. The benefit of having Jordan Love is you can do all this short stuff. You can run the ball. You can get the defense cheating up. And then he's got that big arm that can go downfield and hit those plays when they're there. That maybe a Malik Willis doesn't give you. That's the difference. But largely the same game plan, and it's not going to catch the Titans by surprise. It's going to come down to the creativity of the game plan, the patience with the game plan, and the execution, just like it did last week.
Yeah, I guess that's what stood out too. There are a lot of motions, a lot of shifts. They tried to keep the defense honest, but yeah, same thing for you.
Yeah, I think the Titans. So they have a game changer in the middle, Simmons, and then they have a really talented rookie, Tavondre Sweat, too, at defensive tackle. And if I'm Denard Wilson, I'm just telling Simmons to just get up the field, just go. Break every double team you can. Blow up the middle because that's what takes all that option stuff out because now you you're under pressure. And I didn't think the Colts really did that. I thought they were more passive and allowed all those double teams and shoot your linebackers. And I think the Titans can do that. And so I think it'll wind up a different kind of a game plan. Now, if they do that, then LaFleur has to react. Then it becomes hitting those short passes over the middle, all kinds of stuff. Stuff to counter that. Maybe getting Josh Jacobs to the outside instead of, all the fake handoffs and all that. Maybe it's pitches and things to the outside. But I think it's going to be a totally different defense on the road. And I think Love might start out doing some of that stuff if he starts, and they'll see how it goes. And if it doesn't, then he can pivot. They can pivot to whatever they want with him in the lineup.
You know what I think the big difference is between these two defenses? And one, you said it, home and road. That's a big difference this week. The Colts game changer in the middle was not near 100%.
No,
DeForest Buckner was very hobbled last week. Jeffrey Simmons is also a dude, right? He's
true.
a game changer too. Just like DeForest Buckner is at 100%. Jeffrey Simmons is not going to be hobbled like DeForest Buckner. That's a huge difference between the two defenses.
And another huge challenge for the Packers offensive line to try to give whoever is the quarterback time. But as far as, the running game, but as far as with the passing game, with Malik in that game against the Colts, I guess did it play out about how you expected? I think he only had, one deep ball, the one deep pass to Romeo Dobbs, the rest was quick game. I guess, again, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
That was the game plan, and if he is the quarterback, you would have to do a lot of the same or maybe more?
You have to do more.
Yeah.
He's going to absolutely have to do more.
Yeah.
And you're talking about some pretty good corners. I mean, L'Jarius Sneed's going to be on Jaden Reed, and that's going to be one hell of a matchup.
Yeah.
One of the best slot guys against Jaden Reed. They have a good secondary. They have some guys who can cover. Safeties are solid. I think it's a whole different ball game for him, and he is going to have to throw it. You're going to have to throw it down the field, especially if they're putting 8 men in the box and they're shooting their linebackers like Philadelphia did. You got to hit them with something, and it's going to be up to him to be patient if it's him, and have to throw the ball. I think it could be kind of ugly if he has to play.
I guess that's the biggest thing too. With this Titans defense, only giving up 17 points in both losses that they've had this season, so they don't give up a whole lot. So it could be another one of those type of games where it could be ugly at times. It could be low scoring. So it could definitely be one of those type of matchups. So moving to the defense for the Packers, as far as they've been pretty solid at times as well, and then you have a Titans offense. I guess when you talk about Will Levis at quarterback, the turnovers that he had in both games in those fourth quarters, they get magnified. But for the most part, he hasn't been that rocky. He's had some pretty consistent play. But again, when he tries to play hero ball, that's when the mistakes happen. So when you look at this Packers defense, I guess it's going to be a challenge to see. I'll start with you, Ryan. What type of pass rush it'll be like in this game. Because for the most part, these 2 weeks for the Packers, you haven't really seen much pass rush at all.
I think they need to make Will Levis play quarterback.
Yeah.
I'm aware that he doesn't have the legs to do anything but play quarterback, but that's a good thing for your defense, making him play quarterback, because he will give you the ball. This is a really bad matchup for the Titans. Like, if I'm the Packers, if I'm Jeff Hafley, I'm very excited this week because finally you can let your defensive front go. And you can. They haven't been unbridled all season through 2 games because they've had Jalen Hurts, they've had Anthony Richardson. Will Levis is not them. You can get after this quarterback, and you feel like you have the personnel to get after this quarterback. And then when that happens, the one thing that we have seen, and we've seen some issues from this Packers defense too. It's not been all great. But the one thing that we definitely have seen in the positive column is that this secondary is opportunistic. They can take the ball away now. So you got the pass rush, you get after careless quarterback, which is what Will Levis is, and then you have the opportunistic back end to take advantage and maximize those chances. This is a really good matchup for this Packers defense. Now, Spoon, let's see, we say all that, and then they go out there and lay an egg. Like, they have to go out and do it, right? And how many times we said, this is a great matchup for the Packers defense, and then it just doesn't look that way at all, like Pittsburgh last year, where they just run the ball down there. I'm like, what the heck is happening here? Like, it could be one of those weeks, but on paper, it should be a good matchup for the Packers defense.
Yeah, I mean, they should be licking their chops to rush off Tennessee's right side, which just, had huge trouble against the Jets, and everybody's going to have trouble blocking the Jets. Their left tackle, J.C. Latham, a Wisconsin product, has been playing pretty well. Looked like he had a pretty good game in week 2. But I wanted to see, I read all this stuff about Levis, how he lost them the game and, he was terrible. And then so I just wanted to watch some of the game, and I turned it on. And, those 2 plays were stupid. They were very Brett Favre-like stuff he did early in his career. He just trying to make something happen. They were dumb, don't do it. Yeah. But you could see that he's fearless. He's got a cannon of an arm, and he will try to fit it in places, and he did sometimes. And then he wasn't afraid to take off running. I didn't think he was, a complete statue, but if he sees something, he's going to take it. That was like Favre. Favre wasn't a great runner, but when he saw an opening, he was going for it. And I think Levis will kind of do that. Now, I don't think it's like playing Jalen Hurts or Anthony Richardson. It's nothing like that. But I think this guy is not going to be afraid to take his shots.
Right. And that's always been how he's been. I actually covered him at the University of Kentucky. He played quarterback there for 2 seasons. And, he's not afraid to run the ball because he is a big-bodied quarterback as well. So, but, again, it's that hero ball stuff, kind of like the things that you might see Mahomes or a guy like that try and do.
Does that go back to Kentucky? Did he do that at Kentucky too?
Oh, yeah. He would, and he actually would run the ball even more so.
But I mean the hero stuff. Trying to behind the back and underhand and all that kind of stuff.
It's the mindset of the plays. He's trying to run the same things that would work in college, but now you're playing grown men. That's what it boils down to. So, he has that capability. He does love to try to make something out of nothing instead of just keeping it simple, instead of just throwing it out of bounds. When you feel the pressure, he might try to sneak one into somebody. So, again, that goes back to the point that you make with the Packers. The defense should be licking its chops a little bit with the opportunity of, if he gets a little flustered and rattled, he will give you the chance to give you the ball.
Jordan Love was like that in college too. His final college season, not that Jordan Love is Rome and all roads lead back to Jordan Love, but his last year at Utah State, he felt like he had to play hero ball. The offensive staff was gone, a lot of turnover at the skill positions at Utah State his final year, and his numbers suffered. Sometimes, and I don't know Will Levis from Kentucky, so if I'm not right here, I don't know that dynamic. But sometimes with you got these really talented quarterbacks on teams that are not all that talented around you, you feel like you have to do everything, and invariably you end up doing too much, and that can be a hard habit to break. Mm-hmm. Jordan Love had 3 years to break that habit, and to watch the most careful quarterback in the history of the NFL take care of the football up close every day. Will Levis didn't have that, so that's a huge difference there. But my headline though. Spoon says that Will Levis is Brett Favre.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. It brought back a lot of memories from this is year 2 of Levis, and Favre was just reckless with the ball his second year. And I remember maybe it was year 3 that he finally threw the ball out of bounds, threw it away, and the crowd gave him, at Lambeau, a standing ovation because he finally threw the ball away instead of trying to fit it somewhere. And it's a process for, gunslingers. I don't like that word, but, if that's what you want to use. This did bring up something when you were talking about Love being reckless. Love made almost the exact same play against the Eagles that Levis made last week. Love threw it left-handed, but he got it to Jacobs. Jacobs. Levis tried to underhand it to Pollard, or I think it was Pollard, and it bounced on the ground, and the Jets recovered it. Now, 2 different things.
Right.
He's in the red zone, on his way to possible go-ahead touchdown.
Second quarter.
Right. And Love is in a 2-minute drill trying to not get sacked, knowing if he does get sacked, the game is over.
And he made the play. He actually made the play. That's kind of important.
Okay, so there's a little difference there. But, the other thing is that Tennessee has some players. Calvin Ridley is a unbelievable player. And he beat Sauce Gardner for 2 touchdowns last week. Mm-hmm. He beat him deep on a ball that I still don't understand how he caught.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it just came through somehow, and he fell down and caught it at the goal line. I mean, it was unbelievable. And that guy is super fast. DeAndre Hopkins can still catch the ball, in traffic. Burks, if they can get him, playing. I mean, he had a good game out here. Was it last year? I think. You know, it's I wouldn't totally write them off. At home, and Levis just has to if they can play smart. But going back to the first point was yes, they have to get pressure on him. They got to get in his face.
Yeah.
You give pressure in his face, he'll be a different quarterback.
Yes, because again, it also kind of goes back to the reference you made in college, which is kind of similar, and I think it's part of why he hasn't broke a lot of those habits because Kentucky's offensive line in college wasn't great. The Titans' offensive line right now isn't great, so he's feeling like, you got to try to save a play, save the day, throw it up to a Ridley or a Hopkins and see what happens instead of just taking it what you could say the defense gives you. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic, just this whole matchup with both teams, just to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I'm interested to see. I'm sorry. I'm interested to see if Hafley starts bringing pressure, like more than just letting his four guys go.
Yeah.
That'd be
Open it up.
interesting.
That's
Yeah,
big.
you almost have to.
To me, if I'm the Titans, my whole game plan is attacking the second level of this Packers defense. To me, the defensive front on the Packers very solid. It's premature to say that the Packers secondary is scary because we've only seen it for 2 weeks. 5 picks in 2 weeks is impressive. That'll get your attention.
Oh yeah.
It'll force you to at least be conscientious and careful. To me, that second level, that's where the issues still are on this Packers defense. The linebacking core needing to take on some dang blocks, it was bad last week, and it's got to be better. The Colts did the Packers a massive favor by not having Jonathan on the field the entire fourth quarter. Like, what are you thinking? I have no idea. But Jeff Hafley will thank you kindly and just go on to week 3. I think they're going to want to exploit the linebacking core for this Packers defense. That'll be the game plan to me.
I do want to jump into special teams as well because there have obviously been questions about the kicker with Braden Narvison, and Matt LaFleur even talked about it because there's been the talk about Brian Gutekunst and the short leash he has on kickers and special teams. I guess what are the Packers coaches saying as far as with Narvison and how he's done through the first couple of games?
I think they like the talent. They're going to be patient so long as the talent's there. His ball striking's been really good. He's just missed twice. I still, maybe I'm the curmudgeon, the one that is being harder on the kicking situation than anyone else. Like at some point, you have to stop missing field goals every week. It's a problem. You can't live in the NFL that way. So Braden Narvison really needs a clean week. He needs to go out there, make all the kicks that he should make. And if he does that, that'd go a long way to getting him back on the right track. It's not like he's totally derailed or off the tracks, but I don't know. Am I being too harsh, Spoon?
I think a little bit. I think
that sounds like me.
I think he could go out and miss 3 field goals, and if he kicks a 53-yarder to win it, in Tennessee, where he's going back to where he kicked during the preseason, everybody would be thrilled. But I get your point. It's worth noting. One each week. He's right now. He is equal with Justin Tucker, the best kicker in the league at all 6 of 8. So but if you look really at the stats, nobody's missing field goals hardly at all in the NFL. I mean, they're hitting 50 some yarders with regularity. So he's got to keep up with that. That's the norm in the NFL. And Dallas's guy came in as a rookie and he just kicked the crap out of it. Jake Moody did it. He's got to come in and do the same thing. So consistency will be really key.
To me, it's just, wasn't this team just here all last season? They're missing a kick every week all last season, right? And then ultimately 41 yards in San Francisco, it ends your seat. Like,
well, yeah, that's
you got to start making the kicks. Like,
they have the luxury now of letting it play out,
right,
and seeing how it goes, because halfway through the season or 3/4 of the season they can make a change. Although they can't pick up Greg Joseph now because he's now with the New York Giants.
Yes.
So that'll be fun to watch what he does there.
Okay, you tell me. At what point is it practical and logical for me to look at this and be like, okay, what's going on here? This is a problem. At what point can exasperation set in?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I guess if he maybe this week. Let's say he goes into the Titans game.
Week
Maybe
three?
he misses 2.
Still feels premature. I don't know. Maybe that's premature. Maybe not.
What if he misses a 53-yarder and hits 2 35-yarder and a 45-yarder?
Doesn't that seem inconsistent to you? I get your point. Like, if it wins the game, that's the bottom
No,
line.
but let's say it doesn't. Let's say it's just he hits a 35 and a 45 and he misses from 53. Is that a problem?
It's just the drip. It feels like drip, 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 drip. Like, at some point, you want to tighten that faucet. You want to, okay, no missed kicks. Let's be clean in this area. And again, week 2, week 3, I do think he gets a leash. I think there's patience here. I think Brian Gutekunst said it himself at Final Cuts that he's too impatient with kickers. So he's probably, as human nature goes, he's probably going to course correct himself a little bit and be a little more patient. But this team was just here. They couldn't every week last season. They missed a kick. It was Anders Carlson missing a kick, and there was a lot of good, but they missed a kick. Just turn off the drippage.
Yeah.
I just think it's a big game for him going back to Tennessee. He's got a little bit familiarity with the stadium. He hit a game winner in Tennessee there. He hit a 59-yarder
in the preseason, yeah.
Yeah, in preseason. So it's probably a comfortable place. If he kind of, falls apart in this stadium, then maybe that's an indication that there's an issue.
That's another point I was going to get to. You mentioned with Braden. It's like it is a reunion of sorts for a few of these guys. So you talk about Malik going back there. You just mentioned Braden Narvis, and even some college connections with Will Levis and Carrington Valentine. They played college ball together.
Good point. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, so there's the one nice thing about being from the state. But when you look at, I guess, obviously Jordan Love is making that steps, but Malik, he did talk in the locker room as well. His demeanor, his mindset, everything about going to Nashville, he seemed pretty like he doesn't care. That's one thing I've been impressed with him more than anything, too, is just his demeanor. He's been a very calm, cool, collected guy. You never really see him sweat. But I do wonder in the back of his head what he's thinking going into this game.
I've kind of thought over the years that when they get to be professionals, that kind of stuff is overplayed. Like going back to their home, the team that got rid of them, whatever. They all kind of know it's a business.
Yeah.
Then, Jerry Alexander goes to Charlotte last year, which is his home, and acts like an idiot, and so then you just flip the whole thing on its head, That
Maybe.
was my impression.
Well, he's a different
That
breed.
might be an exception.
Yeah, he's a different
to the
breed.
rule.
Yeah.
Could be an exception. In general, I don't think guys get too emotional about it, but it must be weird when all of a sudden, Jeffrey Simmons tackles you, and then you're like, hey, but how's it going?
Yeah.
Right.
We were just playing, video games 3 weeks ago or something like that. That's got to be kind of weird.
You know what? I just must be more petty than the average person. Because if it was me, I'd be burning.
Has some fun.
I'd want to show them.
Yeah.
There's no. I know how I'd feel.
Yeah.
And
I think some guys are like that.
I
do.
Guilty.
But I do wonder if Malik's situation is just slightly different because you can say you leave the Titans, but you go to the Packers. I wonder if just the fact like you're going to obviously a bigger brand,
Yeah.
a bigger
He
tradition,
got a
bigger
good opportunity for himself.
Yeah.
right. It's like you did in ways you upgraded.
And see, here's the thing: human emotions can be all kinds of complex, right? It doesn't have to be one thing. It doesn't have to just be it's personal. Like there can be real gratitude there. And I thought the thing that resonated with me is he's like, I got paid every day I was there.
That's the other big thing.
He got paid to play professional football.
Yeah.
Every day he was with the Titans. I'm sure there's some gratitude too, but then they trade you for a 7th round pick. They trade you for a Samari Toure. Like, if there's professional pride, how does that not matter a little bit to you? I know it wouldn't me. And I was adamant all last week, like there's no way Jordan Love is playing. I'm adamant this week. No matter what Malik Willis says, I just have a hard time believing that nothing about this is personal if he does get to play. It's just, I can't wrap my head around how that would be. And maybe I'm just petty.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm one of those guys. I just can't wrap my head around it.
I think more than anything, though, there is like a competitive juice. Maybe if not the pettiness, there's like the competition. Like you guys shared a locker room together, you traveled, you were friends. He said they talk still. He just not this week. That was kind of his comment. But
There'll be some trash talk.
oh yeah,
There'll
because
be some
again,
trash talk.
they're your friends, but you still want to win the game. So I know more than anything, there has to be that competitive edge. heading into this game. So it is. It's going to be just a unique, emotional type game for a lot of people. So it could make for a really good game on Sunday.
Good. One thing we were talking about special teams, and I wanted to mention is the Titans have a great punter, Stonehouse. The guy's got a massive leg, but they've had a punt blocked in each of the last 2 games.
Yeah.
And the one last week, guy just like let him go. He just opened the gate and bam.
Yeah.
And so if Bisaccia should be coming up with all kinds of stuff to try to figure out how to put pressure on that guy, because and whoever's returning, they should be ready, because they're going to be trying to get the ball off quick and maybe not have as good a punts as they normally do. That's a big matchup, I think.
I think that's the big thing too about this game. It's another one of those games that's right in front of the Packers to take.
Right.
Like, the Titans are going to make mistakes. They're going to give you opportunities. How do you capitalize? Because even in that Colts game, some of the turnovers, or the Eagles game in particular, had some turnovers. They didn't turn them into touchdowns. Like, you have to capitalize when it comes to. So that's going to be another big key for the Packers, I think, in this game.
I looked at last week as a good team figuring out how to beat a bad team at home.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Even without your top quarterback, so you're not as good, obviously. But the Packers still a good team. The Colts are a bad team. I see this. I just can't get over. This is a good matchup for the Packers defense against a bad matchup for the Titans offense, and that should matter. But when it doesn't, and especially if there's a backup quarterback, Spoon, you have an All-Pro vote, correct? Mm-hmm. So I want your what Daniel Whelan has shown, and what he showed last week. If he, how is that an All-Pro leg to you? Is that
It's hard to say, because there are some just unbelievable numbers. Guys average close to 50, in gross, and he's never going to average 50.
Not here.
Punting here.
Yeah.
And that's like just a knock against him. If he's, you'd have to be a game changer. I think he was last week. I think he did, shift the field for the Packers. It could happen. But it's always warm weather guys, and it's always dome kicker punters. I mean, I try to pick the guy who's really been good inside the 20, who's had really good hang times, who scouts and stuff have said strategically he's been really good directionally. But I think most people just vote for, they see 52 yards per punt. Yeah, I'm going with him.
I was wondering that because, Corey Bojorquez had a heck of a year here. He just couldn't hold anything to save his job. We've seen really good punters. J.K. Scott has gone on to be a very, very solid punter in this league after not doing that here. I'm not sure. I think Daniel Whelan might be the best leg I've seen here since I got on the beat in 2014. Like, that he has just a hellacious leg. There's a reason why there was no competition for his job. There was even another, Peter Bowden, long snapper, was on the roster during the offseason. I'm not sure that there was ever much of a competition for Matt Orzech's long snapping job. There was obviously a kicking competition. There was never a punting competition, and we saw this guy's leg can be a game changer. It was week 2, and I think it'll be very interesting as it gets colder, which it won't be this week. It's going to be boiling down in Tennessee like it was this past week at Lambeau Field. But I just, that leg is special to me. I don't have the 30 years of looking at guys kill the football off their foot to compare it to.
Yeah, I mean, Bojorquez was probably the closest.
Yeah.
Might be the best leg I've ever seen. Now, he didn't have great control of it. He had trouble kicking, diagonally, and Whelan might have the best hang time of anybody I've seen here. He just is really, really good at hang time, and that's what he's worked on, and that's what's gonna do him the best here in Green Bay. It's not going to be distance; it's going to be hang time, and trying to just avoid returns as often as possible and let the offense do its job. So, or the defense, I'm sorry, do its job.
For you guys, as we start to wrap up this podcast, are there some closing remarks? Are there things you want to get off your chest? It could be good, it could be bad, it could be anything in between. I guess, what are some closing thoughts and just final words that you wanted to hit on before we wrap this thing up?
I'm always, I don't know what it is, but over the years of covering Tennessee, games against Tennessee, it's so weird. Like, it seems like those games are always one-sided. Like, one team or the other just kicks the crap out of the other or has some kind of big offensive day or some defensive day. And, going all the way back, you guys don't remember, but, like, the Packers played Tennessee, like, 4 years in a row in the preseason, in the final preseason game, and like 3 of them, the game had to be stopped because of bad weather, and delayed, and we sat in the press box for, I think it happened at least twice. So, I mean, just funny things happen, and so I'm not taking anything for granted on this game. Like, I don't really know how this thing's going to play out. Tennessee's got its back to the wall, going 0-2. They really need to win. And I think they play Miami after this, so they got an AFC game. I don't know. I think there's something going to be weird about this game.
It is because, looking into it, one team has more confidence than the other. One team is like, hey, we can beat a team with a backup quarterback. Another team, there are points here and there, their plays here and there from being 2-0. So, I'm just whoever opens up the game hot and ready to roll, it can make for an intriguing matchup.
The team without the confidence is also way more desperate. The Packers don't have – they want to win every week. I'm not saying that. But you can't compare the desperation on the two sides because starting 1-2 and getting Jordan Love back potentially for week 4, there's a lot of season left at that point, whereas 0-3 it's a death knell. You don't come back from 0-3. You can come back from 0-2. You don't come back from 0-3. So this is it for Tennessee. Memorably, the one that, as you said, the weird matchups with the Titans that don't always make sense. 2016, that was part of the back-to-back blowouts. Tennessee and Washington before run the table.
Oh,
do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
They just got boat raced. It was bad.
That was down there, right?
Yeah, it was at Nissan Stadium. It was like bad.
34-17.
It was.
I know. I saw another.
Rodgers had 3 interceptions.
Yeah,
I know. I saw another picture on Twitter where Packers won that 1 year, 55-0.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was so bad. That was in the height of the Aaron Rodgers Hail Mary stretch. He threw a Hail Mary, I believe, at the end of the first half on that one that I think Kevin Byard picked off. So like he couldn't even get the Hail Mary going during that game. That was bad. To me, I think what's really, really important, what was really, really important last week, and what will be very important if it is Malik Willis this week, is starting well. That was so big because it gives confidence, and it really sets the momentum and the tempo of the game, the pace of the game. Coming out and getting 164 rushing yards in the first quarter, that's obviously very helpful whenever that happens. I don't expect that to happen again. But that 10-0 lead, and it just kind of tilted the field, which is really important when you got a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
Because think about it. They didn't do much in the second half. They just kind of held on to that hot start in the first quarter. Yeah. But that was enough. And I think that this is another game where if they have another first quarter, maybe not 164 rushing yards, but another strong double-digit lead in the first quarter, that could be enough this week too. They could hang on to something like that again. So I think starting fast it's not like it's big every week. You always would prefer to start fast and not, but it's especially important this week if they do have a backup quarterback. And I'm looking for I don't know right now. I would put the odds 60% Love plays, slightly above 50. But if they shut them down Friday, that's in the 40%. That to me is going to be the green light or not.
Either way, I agree with you about the fast start, but either way, if I'm LaFleur, I defer. And I put my defense out there against Levis, and I say, coming after you right away, set the tone, and then, if you can stop them, then you give whoever the quarterback is a nice little, maybe 40-yard line to start at.
Yeah, because in that game against the Colts, it allowed Malik to play comfortable, mistake-free football because of the lead and how the defense was playing. So you're exactly right.
Is that different than last week? Would you have deferred last week?
No. Last week I would have wanted the ball to. I would have wanted the ball, especially with that game plan. Just like, okay, here's what we're throwing at you. Get ready. But this time around, I think defense is what your advantage is, and so go flex to start.
Yeah. So just going to look forward to this matchup, and for everything as we're updating you on Jordan Love, the matchup with the Titans, just follow us all and we will keep you up to date. So thank you all for checking out this week's edition of the Green 19 podcast. Ryan Wood, Dominique Yates, and Tom Silverstein.